what does a tool become when it is outdated, when it is obsolete, when it becomes retired? What is a tool that doesn't work? And the best way I could describe it is it becomes a relic. Hey friends, Kevin Dairaghi. Welcome to the Kevin Dairaghi Show. Today I am here in Florida. I don't know if you could hear it and see it in the background, but we are by the beach here. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. The water is crashing. The insects are talking all around, and it's just a great time. And I just wanted to share something that's kind of been on my mind with all this talk coming up. So what does a tool become when it is outdated, when it is obsolete, when it becomes retired? What is a tool that doesn't work? And the best way I could describe it is it becomes a relic. I had, so in every house that I have actually bought and sold and flipped and all this stuff, I have, typically I take at least something from each house and I keep it. Sometimes it's a hatchet or a tool or something like that, something fun, right? But this one, I have this pair at home, and it has these handles, and it's got this little, looks like a scissors, right? But instead of blades, it has these little points. And turns out it's actually ice tongs. So back in the day, right, there used to be big blocks of ice, and they would go around. And actually, my dad had this when he was a kid growing up on the hill in St. Louis. You would come over and you grab this big block of ice, and you would stick it in your ice box. Right? This is pre-refrigerators. This is an ice box, a box that holds ice that you can keep your meat in, etc. So this was a tool at the time that would pick up the block of ice and you would slide it into the part there in the ice box. Think of a giant cooler, right? To keep your food, your perishables from going bad. Again, this is pre-refrigerators and whatnot. Do we see these ice tongs or ice boxes now? No, they're relics now. They're stuff that go on the walls of your local restaurants like Applebee's, right? It is no longer a tool. It is a relic. It is something that goes on the shelf that's typically for display. Some of the other things I pick up from some of these houses, think of some of the very first I remember I have the screwdriver. It's like metal casing, like it's super heavy. It actually only goes one way. It only drills. It only pushes something in. There's no backward feature to it. It's a metal casing, so what's fun is every once in a while it'll shock you. Like when you start using it a lot, you're like, ow! It starts biting you. It becomes some of the curiosities, right? It's something that you don't really want to use in real life, but it is kind of fun to play with a little bit. that screwdriver could also be used as a hammer, right? It's one of those things that's so tough. It'll last forever. It's just not really functional. Even some of our low-grade tools now have more power capabilities or chucks or all these different features that these old ones just don't have. In high school, my mom actually made me take a typing class. So just to kind of date myself, I went and I had typing class, and we did it on a typewriter. And as it turns out, it was the last year that typewriters were used. The next year, after I was done, it all switched over to keyboards, right? Because computers were really becoming the mainstream thing. There's a house I just looked at, and the dad who passed, he was a typewriter fixer, right? So he had all these components to typewriters in his garage and all these things lined up. What are all those now? Those are relics. They're not really used. They're not very practical. They're something that is a curiosity or a keepsake that somebody puts up for display, not really there for a day-to-day use anymore. Think of pagers. Pagers are gone, right? Think of iPods. iPods are gone. These are just some of the things that it's just not used anymore. It's outdated. They're kind of relic items. Much to the use of like Latin. Latin is still around, used in some of the mass or services here and there, but really it's a dead language. We're not actively doing a lot of stuff with it. Very similar to cursive. Now that we're not doing as much writing or handwriting, cursive is going away. What you need to know is how to type and use an iPad. Cursive is being phased out of schools to make sure that kids know the technology now. That is more important than sometimes these other things, where cursive is becoming like its own language. If you want to be able to read some of the old historical documents or something, you need to learn how to read cursive, which is kind of fun for me because I never really liked it anyway. But some of the fun parts I want to talk about here today is different times that these tools or relics or kind of the failure to adapt of some of these businesses. So think of transportation industry. We had the horse and buggy. That was what civilization used for many hundred of years, right? This had lasted for thousands of years. The horse and then the buggy and then the automobile came along, right? And it kind of transformed what that looked like. It is kind of funny to think, we think of cars being pollutants and whatnot. Well, horses give off a lot of byproducts too. And there's actually a whole industry basically of keeping up with the removal of the horse dung and whatnot in all these different cities. But automobiles, and then the person who really took the automobile and then brought in the assembly line is Henry Ford, who was famous for saying you could have any color you want as long as it's black, right? That's the way he was doing it. He was mass producing this, making it so everybody could go out there and have a car. It was affordable. We could get it. You could have anything you want as long as it's black. How did how did Henry Ford lose his edge there? Was the individual, right? The personalization. I want a red car. I want a blue car. I want one that's a little bit more sleek that shows off my personality. And that's a little bit of how he lost some of his market share to other companies like Chevrolet and GM and all these different places who came in and started taking some of that Model T business away. The other one, when I was in college, I did a year co-op where I was independently traveling America. So I would be in a different city every day, which was a huge fun experience. That's a different story. But what happened, I was working on the 1-hour photo machines for this company called Qualix. And I would go in to these different stores and we'd go in and we'd upgrade it so it would have these advanced services, right? So you could zoom in, zoom out, take different parts that could be done in the 1-hour photo booths there. And they were serviced by one of the largest companies at that time, Kodak. And they were doing fantastic work and pumping the stuff out, and they were just trying to continue doing it. And they were servicing the film industry. Digital was just coming out, and the question was like, hey, how are we going to service the digital? And they're like, we've been doing this for hundreds of years. We're good. We're a big company. And in 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy, right? This large company is now gone. It was not able to adapt to the current industry, right? It wasn't able to take the current trends and kind of look forward. They were still looking behind them and never updated their technology. Actually, Kodak was the first ones to come up with the digital camera, but they weren't even able to capitalize on their own creation. Just kind of mind-blowing how that works. And then the other part I want to bring up is the home entertainment. When I was growing up, we started out with VHS. And for birthdays and special occasions, we'd go and we'd rent the VHS recorder so we could watch movies at home. And that was a big deal, right? And it went from VHS and then went into DVDs and then went into Blu-ray. And now everything is streaming. Now you just need Netflix and you could have any of these movies at your fingertips, right? The home entertainment, it's changed so much. Now you can watch movies on your phone. And all this stuff wasn't around just a few years ago. Like, that's how new some of the stuff is. One of the big industries there was this company called Blockbuster. And Netflix, when they were still a young company, was like, hey, do you guys want to, buy in? Do you want to buy us? How do you want to help us? And Blockbuster said, no, we're fine. And guess what? Blockbuster is gone, and now Netflix is making their own shows, right? They're producing their own things. And Blockbuster is only like in some remote parts of Alaska, right? They became obsolete. They become a relic. They became something that you hang up and now you just talk about as references for businesses, right? It is kind of crazy to see with this technology and all these things what has happened. Why am I bringing up some of these examples? Because, again, I was in college and Al Gore, thanks to Al Gore, right? We had this thing called the internet. And the age of the internet came in, right? The creation of emails and instant messenger. I remember we had to get these different things and we'd create them. And it was just like, oh my gosh, it's such a big deal when you got mail. That little thing popped up and it just was like, yes, I got mail. And it started replacing physical mail. It started replacing, physical phone calls when it could just tap in and do an instant message to somebody. I remember many nights staying up and just chatting with friends all over America on this instant messenger, which now is funny because we don't use that anymore, right? We text or we call or we do any of these other ways of messaging people. But it's just kind of funny how this relationship with the internet started creating this relationship with the digital world, right? Our relationship with ones and zeros. How does this look? How can I interact using landing pages and web pages, and the whole .com world started opening up. And then some businesses adapted and made web pages and some didn't. Some were still using the yellow pages and billboards and some of these other versions. Well, now do you see phone books anymore? Or if you want to find somewhere, where do you go? You go to your phone, you do a search, you go to your computer, you tap around, and this becomes our services, right? Some of the phone books went online, right? The white pages or yellow pages now, or Google reviews is where we go to find phone numbers or kind of what people think, like the Yelps of some of that world. You know, I'm a history fan, so it brings up with this whole creation of AI, artificial intelligence, right? This ability to kind of think and do that digitally, virtually, right? It reminds me a lot of the Revolutionary War. The age of the internet, right? The first comings of this is kind of like what America was with the Revolutionary War. We came in, we broke away from the status quo. Hey, this is the new world. This is how we're doing it, which was good. But if you know much of history, just because Britain said, okay, you guys win for now, right? The Treaty of Paris, 29 years later, they came back and they attacked again. We call it the War of 1812 or the Second Revolutionary War. But it was really the war that said, okay, no, we really are not your colonies. We are our own thing, and we have our own sovereignty. And that's when Britain really said, okay, you guys are good. Like, we'll stop fighting you and just start trading with you. Well, the War of 1812 is this age of AI that is really here now. It's actually been around for a while, but it really is increasing and gaining lots of momentum. And it's kind of weird. If I'm the one telling you it's here, I'm not the most tech savvy. That's why I have these people around me, Jake and Dorward, Mary, Chris. These are the people that really do help me communicate with you guys through all these different mediums and through the different platforms. So this age of AI, it's here. This is significant. The age of AI is significant, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. They have spent trillions with a T in the infrastructure to get this out there, right? To make sure that people can use it, to make sure that it's still open, that people could go out there and kind of help build and grow this. It's like the Wild West right now in this AI space. There's some key companies that are out there ahead of the pack, but just know that it's here, and this isn't going to go away. This is something that's going to keep building and adding layers onto it. A big question is this age, right, the age of AI, is that going to be bigger than the age of the internet? And is this going to replace the internet? So I'll go ahead and answer that part and say it's not going to replace the internet, but it is reshaping the internet. It is reshaping how our world works with this digital footprint. AI is staying, AI is growing, and it actually is something that we all should get to know and understand. We should actually, as these mom and pop shops, which we are, this is a way that we could start acting and working like we're one of the big guys, right? Like we're one of the big boys, because now we have a tool that could help us market, that could help us do analysis, some of the back end stuff. Or if we're producing something, we could say, hey, is my research okay? Am I in compliance? Is there anything else I forgot about? And it could kind of fact check you based on what it could pull up from a lot of different sources. So in that case, it's really a big deal to be able to say one person now could do the work of 8, 5, 20, whatever it is. So it's one of those things. It's able to give an individual the ability to kind of be a big shot. One of the thoughts is when somebody now is, you know, I have kids in high school and middle school and stuff like that. As kids are now growing up, they're basically going to have an AI version, a digital or a virtual version of themselves that's going to grow up with them, right? Think of this, that AI version of them can actually probably know their kid better than a parent, right? Because they get to understand the kid's patterns and questions and just evolution that not all parents actually could see or understand or even get those questions. But talking to a bot, right, might be a little bit easier for a lot of people. Just kind of one of those things that's kind of scary to think about sometimes. But it shouldn't scare us. It's just kind of one of those, which actually brings up a curious question, is how does the ethics work? You know, being a more unethical person, but how does that work with AI? Can you mistreat AI? Can you lie to an AI that you wouldn't lie to a person? How do some of the relationships start acting? I don't know. These are questions that I don't think we ever really had to think about until we have to think about it. So, what a curious thing, learning about the ethics and how to treat a bot or some ones and zeros. Do you treat it like a person? I saw one report that they were saying, because so many people are saying please and thank you at the end of some of their little, chat GPT chats, that it's actually costing so much money, so much heat, and so much like computing time that it's actually spending thousands and tens of thousands of dollars for the courtesy. Who knew? Who knew? So a question is, do we need to be scared? Do we need to be fearful of losing jobs with AI? And some people will lose jobs. Those people will have to adjust. People will have to, actually, there's going to be a lot of jobs made with AI, but it will be a chance for us to kind of learn and understand and apply these new tools, right? If you don't adapt some of these things, you might become that relic or that tool that's just not really used anymore. But it is one of those things that we do need to learn to trust and employ. Now, if we look back in some of those early examples, how did Henry Ford, who was mass producing this Model T, how did that actually get beat? And it was by tailoring to the individual, to the person who wanted a blue car, the person who was willing to pay more for a red car. Well, there's some things that AI just can't do, right? And it's some of the friendships that we have. It's smiles and hugs, right? It's sharing food and drink and shared experiences, like this trip to Florida that we have. These are things that AI can't necessarily do for us, right? Because people still want to work with somebody they know, like, and trust. What they can do, though, is multiply that experience with many more people, right? I'm able to talk to you now, and it goes out to all these people. If each one of these was a phone call or a chat, I wouldn't be able to talk with as many people about this. But now with the use of AI, we can cut this up and send it to a lot of different places. So that said, I just want to acknowledge my company, Restore STL. We buy houses to restore neighborhoods. We are actually unveiling our new website, so restorestl.com. We are now employing some of the tools of AI, not in a scary way, not in a creepy way, but it's a way that I or the team can start being in more places, right? If we employ tools that help us analyze, or think about it this way, if I could show you your choices with a no hassle, just a way that you go and see roughly what ideas that your house could go for or your options, if I could send this out to you in a personalized way that helps me talk to more people, fantastic. You still need somebody to hold your hand sometimes and walk through the process. You'll still need somebody to help you through and guide you through this, but it lets me and our team be there for more people, right? How many times can I help somebody learn their credit? How many times can I direct them to different people? Or how can I multiply myself and be in more places? And this AI tool is able to service people better, right? It's a way that one person or two people can now service tens and hundreds and thousands of people all in one swoop because of this tool called AI. It's a great way of fact checking and analyzing and making sure we're thinking clearly, right? It lets us be better and helping you with like compliances and codes, right? And it also lets us have a more personalized talk to people without necessarily taking more personalized time. So it is kind of a neat way of seeing how this AI and these tools could better help and serve the individuals, right? The small business owners, the person out there looking at building and growing their own business, and also like options, right? If you're looking at selling a house or buy a house or invest in something. So kind of I start with this question of what does a tool become when it becomes obsolete? My answer is a relic. So my question to you as we're wrapping up here is, what are you going to do? You could go out there and start learning this tool. It's never too late, right? You could start going out there and becoming part of the process, becoming part of the change, right? Still being a real person, right? Know, like, and trust is who we do business with. So are you going to go out there and use the tools and be a resource and kind of grow in this? Or are you and your business going to stop being used, stop growing, and are you going to become a relic? Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you here from Florida. Thank you for a beautiful day. Guys, I want to thank my sponsors, Lois Mann's Farmers Insurance, You've been covering my assets for many years here, so I thank you for that. Greg Mans with Upright Construction, doing all my outside, all the roofs and gutters and all that stuff. Greg, thank you so much for all the work you do for us. Jason Hudson, Red Maples Construction, several projects you're working on for us now, flipping and rentals and all the stuff. Guys, you are fantastic. Thank you, Jason. And also Adam Droege with Complete Property Solutions. You guys, CRS, you guys have been great in making sure that you support us and sponsor us and make sure that you're helping business owners maintain their properties as they go through and being a good steward. So guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for participating and talking with us and letting our story grow. So guys, please go out, check out the Restore STL, continue liking and subscribing, and we'll talk to you soon.